Welcome to the third episode of Nod-Krai Exordia. This video was written a few days before Luna 1 was released and I was planning to upload it prior to that, but knowing we'll get more lore from the new version, I might as well wait until the update comes and update the script later. But anyway, we got a lot of information regarding this faction already, and while we don't meet all of the Harbingers in Luna 1, I believe we will at some point meet every single one of them. I would believe that some would even betray the Fatui for their own goals. This faction is interesting because while some of the Harbingers are known to be the scum of the earth, some are actually a lot nicer than we might have thought. So sit back and get comfy as I tell you everything we know about this faction. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. But before that, the Song of Welcome Moon patch is finally here, and so is Genshin's anniversary. Llama is currently on banner, a strong Luna Bloom support that significantly improves Bloom-based teams, and these characters currently coincides with her banner. The next banner will feature Flints, a character that will convert the pre-existing Electro Charge to Lunar Charged, making him one of the strongest main DPS in the current meta. The double top-up rewards also reset during the anniversary, and if you need extra promo gems to pull for the new characters, then allow me to introduce you to Loot Bar. Loot Bar is a reliable site for a fast, secure, and super reliable top-up experience for your Genesis Crystal. Additionally, they provide 25% discounts compared to normal prices in-game and support both PlayStation and Xbox as well. All you need is to enter your UID, nothing else, so your privacy is guaranteed, and your items will arrive to your account in less than 2 minutes. During the anniversary, you can obtain the first double top-up rewards through Loot Bar with special discounts. I actually purchased this myself using Loot Bar and I get a double reward myself. Yes, this is very recent, and you can tell I'm currently not Nod-Krai right now. I need this for my husband, okay? If you want to obtain all of the first double top-up rewards in one go, they offer the all-in-one package as well. Aside from me, a lot of content creators including Dukaja and Jello Impact are using Loot Bar as well, and over 20,000 Trustpilot reviews are showing their satisfaction after using Loot Bar. Not only that, their customer service is always available if you need assistance. Other than Genshin Impact, Loot Bar is also available for other games as well, such as Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Zelda Zone Zero, etc. Click the link in the description below and register to get an additional 10% coupon that can be combined with all of the discounts. Now let's continue to the content. Nod-Krai Exordia Chapter 3 The Fatui. As you can already tell by now, the Fatui's lore is huge. It's so big that I don't even know where to begin. In every nation we are in, the Fatui will always be there, and even in the world quests, they are also involved. Also, for this video, I have to read every single Fatui related quest from my own research, and you have no idea how boring and painful it is to read walls of dialogues in Genshin Wiki just for this stupid video. But alas, I'm doing this for you, so here we are. I'm your lore kitty YouTuber Neko and I read the Genshin Impact lore so you don't have to. Sorry. Anyway, considering there's still ambiguous information regarding about the lore, there will be bits of speculation along the way. I'll do my very best to make the best sense out of the lore. The Fatui is an organization under the Cry Archon, the Tsaritsa, with Piero as the director. The Tsaritsa witnessed what happened during the Cataclysm, and according to Fenty, she was the most affected out of them all. During this time, only Fenty and Zhongli remained as the original 7, while others perished. While not one of the original, according to A, Mavrika was present during this time prior to her putting her life in the Sacred Flame. In the Long Night's Oath, it is heavily implied that Belyi Tsar perished during the Cataclysm and the Tsaritsa ascended to Archonhood after that incident. It is also implied in the same artifact that around this time, the Tsaritsa created the Fatui, and this is supported in the Pale Flame artifact set. Piero was the very first member of this organization and was tasked by the Tsaritsa to recruit the Fatui Harbingers in response to the Cataclysm. In order, the Pale Flame artifact set talks about Signora, Dottore, Pantalone, Scaramouche, and Piero respectively. The goal of this organization is one thing: to rebel against the heavenly principles. It's stated plenty of times throughout the game and even in the Travail trailer. In the God's Limits trailer, Piero said to seize the authority of the gods, and it seems they're taking this opportunity while the heavenly principles is still asleep. But even prior to this, it is heavily implied in the Night of the Skies unveiling and the hymns of the Far North that the previous Cry Archon, Belyi Tsar, was plotting to rebel against the heavenly principles. He is also the main reason why the third descender was carved into 7 noses, so his plot of rebellion already started way before he ascended to Archonhood. Quite ironic, don't you think? The very being who wanted to rebel ended up becoming an Archon, an entity that is tied to the rules of the heavenly principles. It definitely matches with the theme of Cryo, where the wielders of this power are considered to have experienced some sort of irony in their life. Considering this is the case, it's also the main reason why the Shades, more specifically Vernova, wanted to intervene as long they're within the rules permitted them to. You can already tell from this trailer that even the Shades know that the Fatui is a dangerous organization. Not that I blame them, because a lot of the members in this organization are Kyrians or just crazy individuals in general. It's also the reason why they call themselves Fatui, because in Latin, Fatui means fools, which could imply they deem themselves stupid enough to even dare oppose the gods of Teyvat. However, it's also stated in Italian, the term Fatui also means fail, which could foreshadow that the Fatui will fail in their goal at some point. Honestly, from a storytelling perspective, I know they will fail because they're still Kyria and likely Celestia after the Snezhnaya arc ended, but let's put that aside for now and we can talk about that at the end of this video. Anyway, while this organization's main goal is clear, how they will do it still remains unclear because it is clear that the Gnosis are needed to rebel against the heavenly principles. After Natlan's patch, however, the Pyronosis is still under Mavwika's possession, so will more than likely return to Natlan for this specifically. Because of the ambiguity in the Tsaritsa's plan, it's also the reason why Nod-Krai was released, in order for the players to fully understand the Tsaritsa's plan. Aside from the Gnosis, it seems her way to rebel against the heavenly principles is also by harnessing the power of the moon. It could be the reason why they're desperately trying to claim Columbina back, where at this current moment of time, she will be the new moon of Teyvat. I already made a video about that, albeit they were a little bit outdated, but you can watch it for the general idea of it. It's important to note that all of the Fatui Harbingers are not using their real name. Tartaglia's real name is Ajax, Signora's real name is Rosaline, Scaramouche's real name is still unknown but usually referred to as Kunikuzushi, Dottore's real name is likely Zandik, Arlecchino's name is Peruer, Sandrone's real name is likely Marianne, Capitano's real name is Strain, and Columbina herself stated that she doesn't have a name. Now that we know the general information about the Fatui, let's talk about the timeline itself. We'll start all the way from 500 years ago until the present day. Again, the timeline is still very jumbled up, and admittingly, some of these old lores are my first time reading them. Some of the lore is extremely convoluted, especially we recently have new lore that Istaroth has been actively mending timeline recently, which makes it even more complicated, and for the sake of my own sanity, I'll skip some of the unimportant details. There might be some mistakes considering these are a few years old of lore, but I'm doing my best. Okay, here we go. According to the hymns of the Far North, it is implied that the Tsaritsa is the Tsar's daughter, presumably at least, and in the Long South, the Tsar fell during the Cataclysm. After what happened during the Calamity, the Tsaritsa and Piero formed the Fatui together. According to Piero, the Tsaritsa is the only person that knew his pain well, hence why he joined. Not to be that person, but I kinda ship Look, the whole point of Snezhnaya and Nod-Krai is related to love, okay? So don't blame me. Anyway, after forming the Fatui, the Tsaritsa tasked Piero to recruit members all over Teyvat to join them. During this time, Capitano was implied to have joined sometime after the Cataclysm, likely after he stored the souls of his comrades in Natlan. It's rather unclear whether the Fatui Harbingers were recruited in order, but judging from Arlecchino's animated short, it seems that they were recruited at different times and their rank were judged by their power according to Nahida. She said that the first 3 ranks have the power that rivals the gods, and within these ranks, there's Capitano, Dottore, and Columbina. From what I can see, it seems Capitano is the way he is because his combat prowess is terrifying and took advantage of the curse of immortality, let alone he has a strong mental state being able to store so many souls inside of him. Dottore could likely because he can make segments of himself, while Columbina because she is the new moon goddess. For Capitano's case, it is said by these gossiping Fatui NPCs in Mondstadt that the Tsaritsa kept his rank as is, which is interesting because there is a theory that Natlan's ignition teaser happened not in the present, but in the future because Chaska seems to reminiscing of her dead sister Quichi, while Mavuika talks with Capitano like they knew each other really well. There is a likely chance that Capitano will be back because according to the Travail trailer, all of the Harbingers will be at the Tsaritsa's side when she finally puts her plan in motion.
She is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any left for her. Her followers hope only to be on her side when the day of her rebellion against the divine comes at last.
But anyway, we have confirmation that Piero personally recruited Signora, Dottore, Scaramouche, and Pantalone from the Pale Flame artifact set. Whether Capitano was recruited before or after he recruited them, so far we have no idea on that. We'll talk about Pantalone in a bit because out of the 11, he has one of the most ambiguous backgrounds so far. The man likely known as Zandik was recruited after he was banished by the Sumeru Academia after his inhuman experiments relating to Elazar. Now you might be confused on why and how I even got his name from. Well, that's because Zandik's notes show remarkably similar behavior towards Dottore, and Wanderer gave the same answer whenever we tried to name him with other Fatui members. Anyway, Zandik's background is just f***ed up, so I'm not going to tell you about them in great detail because I need to eat, I need to get paid, but just for TLDR, Zandik managed to find a cure for Elazar, but at the cost of making his first patient go through a traumatic and scarring experience, thus banishing him to the desert in the process. The method is by using flesh of the unalived to the alived. If you want to read the whole thing, good luck. Knowing this act of heresy, Piero tracked Zandik down and promised him that he would provide Zandik with all of the resources he needed for his research, including creating an artificial god. The Kamen Rider boss, the Scaramouche one, is one such god, and it seems this is more of a test drive rather than the final product of what he is trying to achieve. Anyway, Zandik accepted Piero's proposal, and from that onward, Piero bestowed the young Zandik with a title and a new name, the Dr. Dottore. Zandik was completely taken aback by that name, then laughed hysterically by the sheer irony of the new identity he was given to. Before we continue, I just want to say this line of the Pale Flame artifact set gave me goosebumps because, yeah, that name is extremely ironic for what he does. My sister is a doctor, which, by the way, is why I am also so surprised and somehow made me like the way the story was written. I don't condone his behavior, I just like the way he is written. In any case, his segments are now no more after the negotiation with Nahida, but it's likely he created more, and this segment could likely be the playable version of Dottore where it's his redemption arc. The next person Piero put his interest on is a bionic puppet of the Electro Archon. Knowing that Wanderer will have an important role in the Song of Vulcan Moon, I'll be giving you a more detailed version of his lore. He was a prototype of A in order to create a puppet that will rule over Inazuma in her stead, in order to achieve the eternity that she sought. The prototype puppet, however, shed tears, and in pity, A decided to free him and put him on rest in Shake Pavilion, while the puppet stared blankly at the beautiful scenery within the lovely mansion he is in with the golden feather as the proof of ownership. I know that sounds so weird and wrong, but stick to the program, we're not talking about that right now. In any case, the puppet deemed this as his first betrayal and even called A as his mother. Eventually, he was found by a samurai named Katsuragi who brought him to Tatarasuna and started living with the people there. It was during this time that the puppet earned his name as the Kabukimono. But when Dottore disguised himself as Asher, came and persuaded people of Tatakrasuna to use the crystal marrow for revolutionary production methods, they were instead slowly decimated by the curse and illness due to the crystal marrow's effect. Just for your information, these crystal marrows are the god's remains, more specifically Oshirobashi's remains in this context, a dangerous substance that can cause disaster to those who use it, but also a source of great power according to Skirk. Because of this, Kabukimono went to Narukami Island to seek audience with the Electro Archon, but it was also the same time when A already perfected the Trident Shogun puppet and had already placed her consciousness in the plane of euthymia. Kabukimono then sought Yaimiko instead, who at the time was also assisting the Shogun puppet, but she promised him that she'll bring reinforcements ASAP. At the same time, Niwa Hisaide, one of Kabukimono's friends, planned to use Asher's machine to purify Tatakrasuna, but he first confronted Asher about his true goal. Asher revealed himself to be Dottore and murdered Niwa. We then learned that Dottore's goal to come here is to wreak havoc for a future ordeal, with Kabukimono as his key subject. He reverted himself back as Asher and convinced the returned Kabukimono that Niwa had abandoned everyone, leaving the Kabukimono as the only hope to save everyone. The Kabukimono entered the heart of Tatakrasuna and almost dying in the process, and he did purge the filth inside the furnace. When asked what's inside the machine, Asher lied, saying that it's Niwa's final gift to Kabukimono, a heart of his subordinate, while in reality, it's Niwa's heart that Asher took out from Niwa's body. Overwhelmed, Kabukimono saw this as the second betrayal and left Tatakrasuna. He then met a young boy who was abandoned and sick, and the two promised to live happily. Unfortunately, the young boy died in his sickness, making the Kabukimono saw this as the third betrayal because the young boy was unable to fulfill his promise. Since then, he wandered off in Azuma and was eventually found by Piero, who then took him into the Fatui. The Doctor then unlocked Kabukimono's true power as the Archon's creation, and he proved himself powerful after expedition to the Abyss as ordered by the Tsaritsa. After a series of repairs, injuries, and enhancements, he brought results of his expedition to the Fatui, and thus gaining his title as the Balladeer Scaramouche. What happens after that is what we experienced in the game, but we won't be going through that today. After that was done, Piero set his gaze to his next candidate, a young woman named Rosaline. Prior to her life in the Fatui, Rosaline was a Mondstadt citizen and Rostam's lover, a knight from the Knights of Avodius who also mentored the Bloodstained Knight. Yes, that Bloodstained Knight from the artifact set. Anyways, during Rosaline's early life, she went to Sumeru Academia to study, and Rostam gifted her a Hydro timepiece, saying that it would track the amount of time she would be away. All it needs is one cycle, and the moment Rosaline finishes her studies, so will the timepiece that will finally set its end. It's not clear on what part of the academia Rosaline was in, but considering the headpiece of the Crimson Witch of Flames state that she was perfecting her pyromagic, then she's likely part of the Spansamat, the same darshan as Lisa. The cataclysm struck while she was still studying in Sumeru, and she was in shock after returning to Mondstadt, finding her home to be destroyed and her lover dead. In rage and sorrow, she consumed the liquid fire she created, abandoning her mortal body to become the Crimson Witch of Flames. It is implied in the artifact said that she did just that in order to fight against the abyssal monsters, but at the same time, people began to fear her due to the terrifying appearance she is in, so she decided to live in seclusion and let her own fire consume her. But before her fire completely engulfed her, Piero approached her and recruited her to become a part of the Fatui. Rosaline was then granted a cry of vision to suppress her fire, thus becoming the fair lady Signora. Next, Piero set his gaze to a poor young man who sought out the gaze of the gods. This man was unable to receive that gaze and resulted in him never able to receive a vision, thus making him resent the gods and their power to control over money. He even resented Morax over it. He values fair exchange over anything else, and the moment Piero approached him, he joined him in order to make Snezhnaya as the heart that pumps money all over the world. Thus, he gained his title as the Regulator, Pantalone. Now, his lore is rather weird, but it is heavily implied in Wriothesley's signature weapon, Cash Flow Supervision, that Pantalone was the one created the credit coupons due to how similar this weapon's lore is to the Bale Flame artifact set. It is said that the credit coupons were made as his test trial, and looking at how it is still used until today, it seems that the test is a success. Wriothesley's story quests say that the credit coupons have existed for a very long time, even during his time as an inmate, and whether this existed prior to him being born is still very unclear. Pantalone himself is likely to be a human considering he resented Morax for having the Gnosis to create money, so it's likely that long time might have been a bit more recent, as in like maybe around 30 years ago. This is only assuming if he is a human, unless he is a long-life species or manages to make himself live longer. Both Wanderer and Arlecchino say that while Pantalone can easily manipulate the economy, it seems that he doesn't have good control over his own emotions. It's important to note that Pantalone never left Snezhnaya and always worked behind the scenes, which is something that Arlecchino stated in the Winter Night Lazo. It is also said that he was working together with Dottore by creating the artificial god that we faced in Sumeru's Archon Quest, and he is currently working with Pulcinella in a project called Project Stuja. We'll talk more about this project later. Before we continue, do note that this video took the longest time in researching and also made my brain malfunction plenty of times. So be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel to let me know that I'm doing a good job. With that said, let's continue. There's two members that we knew recently recruited, albeit they were not personally recruited by Piero, that being Arlecchino and Tartaglia. In Arlecchino's case, you can watch the song Burning in Embers because it tells you everything you need to know about how she was recruited. And admittingly, it's a lot more entertaining than me recapping about it anyway. However, it's important to note that Arlecchino's power, the Bale Moon Bloodfire, likely derives from the Crimson Moon as she is confirmed to be a descendant from the Crimson Moon dynasty. In short, Arlecchino is a Khaenri'an, but as to how she even ended up in the House of the Hearth, so far there's no information on that. But we do know that Crucibina, this bitch over here, often makes the children in the orphanage to fight each other. Those who were grievously injured were sent to Dottore for experimentation or sent on a dangerous mission that made it impossible for them to return. Arlecchino has gained an interesting reputation towards the non-playable Fatui Harbingers because according to Wanderer and Tartaglia, Arlecchino is one of the likeliest Harbinger that can and would betray the Fatui, which I do think we might see her do just that because her lore so far indicates that she cares about nothing but the children in the orphanage than the Fatui. She even said it herself in her own voice line about the Tsaritsa that she can and would not hesitate to point her weapon at the Tsaritsa if they are forced to be adults one day. Also, fun little detail, Columbina was the very first person to scare Arlecchino, which is definitely an interesting little lore there. As for Tartaglia, after he left the Abyss, he became bloodthirsty for battle. In order to control the young Ajax's temper, his father sent him to the Fatui where it was known for its strict military training. However, Totolini ended up defeating all of the soldiers and this raised Pulcinella's interest, making the young Tomato as the official soldier from a young age. Eventually, after proving his worth many times, Tartar Sauce appointed as the 11th Harbinger, earning himself the title as the child Ed Sheeran. Oh my god, I can't take this seriously. Anyway, jokes aside, Tartaglia is his title, just like Arlecchino, Capitano, etc., while Child is his other title, as in like the Fair Lady, the Knave, the Damselet, etc. Ajax is his birth name, and his name has a very strong connection towards a historical figure in Snezhnayan stage play, playing about a boy named Ajax who founded the drowned Hyperborea and is a lover of a girl named Snigurhetska. If you watched my previous video about the hymns of the Far North, I mentioned that Sakhelainen could likely have a strong connection towards Ajax because they have similar deeds according to the known lore and the book's description. Some of you mentioned in my comments that Tartaglia could likely have connections towards Ajax as well, which I do think that's a plausible possibility given names do have strong connections towards one and the other. We learned this from 4.8 where the Simulan Kandurin share the same fate as Teyvat's Durin, and this goes the same in Atlan where an ancient name is needed in order to revive someone from the abyss and is passed down to the next generation as its bearer. Personally, while I do think they have connection towards each other, I personally don't really believe that Tartaglia is the same Ajax, because if that's the case, then the Tsaritsa would at least take notice of that, but there's no implication that she does. The Tsaritsa is also said to have lived for a very long time, and while she is not one of the original 7, she is implied to have lived along with the original, that being Belyi Tsar, who still reigned as the Cryo Archon at the time. However, I do think the game will give us more lore about Tartaglia, considering that his lore is quite little given he was one of the earliest characters ever released in this game, and character stories at that time were only a few paragraphs long. Besides, Tartaglia said that he is loyal to the Tsaritsa and no one else, and this behavior is quite similar to Sarkelainen, where he is willing to sacrifice himself in order to marry the Tsar's daughter. Now we're entering characters with unknown time of being recruited, that being Pulcinella, Sandrone, and Columbina. Let's start with Pulcinella first. It was unclear when he was recruited, but we do know that he should at least be recruited around 400 years ago after the first mayor of Snezhnaya, also known as a Hex and Circle mage named I. Ivanovna N, passed away. This is assuming if Pulcinella is a long-lived species given his elven ears. While Tartaglia has high respect towards the mayor, Arlecchino and Wanderer find it to be the opposite. In fact, according to Arlecchino, Pulcinella often uses House of the Hearth as the price of his own projects, and this goes the same with Project Stuja, where he and Pantalone are working together with House of the Hearth as the key member. According to Arlecchino's story quest, it seems that Pulcinella spread rumors about Arlecchino betraying the House of the Hearth once, which, no, that's not necessarily true, because it's more to where Arlecchino was the one who freed House of the Hearth from Columbina, and in fact has always been the one to protect the orphanage, even though her methods can be a little bit extreme. Besides, according to Lini, the House of the Hearth is an organization that is outside of the Fatui's control, despite being a part of the Fatui, so it's very likely that Pantalone and Pulcinella want to subdue this subgroup instead. In any case, Project Stuja will play a huge role within Pulcinella, Pantalone, and Arlecchino, as they are likely to be the key role of this project, and it's likely that we'll experience what this is all about in Nod-Krai as well, given all of the Harbingers are said to be present in Nod-Krai. Next is Sandrone, to which we still have very little information on despite her constant appearance in the Song of Welcome Moon Quest. Just like Pulcinella, we have no idea on why and how she even got recruited, but it is possible that she might be a Fontanian, considering Polonia's clothing seems to be resemble a Fontanian attire. In fact, there is a popular theory that Sandrone might be strongly connected towards Alain Guillotine, the stepbrother of Marianne from 500 years ago. Basically, Alain is the founder of the Arc system, or the Pneuma and Usea mechanic that the Fontanian castes have. This then soon became Fontaine's main source of energy after the events in the Arc Quest ended, with Neuvillette as the master of it. Polonia also shares the Arc resemblance, given its color on its back is quite similar to when Pneuma and Usea collide, giving a cyan color. Of course, it could likely be animal, but Polonia also shares geopowers from its missiles and attacks. Anyway, the theory here is that at the end of Alain's story, he is said that to have retired from the Fontaine Research Institute and isolated himself in the workshop, dedicating himself to nothing but his research. This goes the same with Sandrone, who is said to have constantly locked herself to focus on nothing but her own research as per the playable Harbinger's voice lines and Columbina's. Some say that Sandrone is likely Elaine's consciousness inside the puppet modeled by his sister, but there's also a theory that Sandrone is Elaine's creation with the remaining of Marianne's consciousness. Just for a reminder, Fontanians are not true humans until the end of Fontaine's Arc Quest. This goes the same with Marianne, who was gravely injured when trying to arrest Jacob and René from their radical research, and her body was then dissolved by an Oceanid named Lyris, merging with her and creating a humanoid Oceanid that we met in the Narcissus Curse questline. It's possible that Alain managed to gain another consciousness of his sister, because it was said that after the Oceanid Marianne created in Aposis, she accidentally created the little Oceanid named Anne, who has both memories of the human Marianne and Lyris. It could be possible that there's more consciousness that the Oceanid Marianne created, and either Alain Jane found one of them, or Marianne might probably not completely deceased yet. Regardless, Sandrone's background is still very murky, but she is implied to have strong connection because of her design resemblance towards Marianne and Elaine Guillotine. Finally, Columbina, which I might have talked about her a lot in every single one of my videos as of late. Not that I'm trying to squeeze her in, it's just that she's just that important in this patch. But regardless, I'll make her section quick and I'll only talk about her connections with the Fatui instead of her whole lore because again, we'll talk about her in the Frostmoon Sciences portion of the series. So, Columbina is said to have left the Frostmoon Science after she is unable to grant their wishes. After she left, the Tsaritsa took her in and told her that she can regard the Fatui as her second home. It was until she realized that the Fatui only wanted her power, so she left the Fatui, hiding in Silvermoon Hall to recover her strength. It's important to note that while she returned to Hisi Island, she does not serve the people of Frostmoon Science anymore, and Llama told her to stay away, at least for now, until the people of Frostmoon Science can finally hear from their blind faith. Columbina also said that she has unpleasant memories with the Fatui, but she did say that she enjoys talking with some of the Harbingers, including Sandrone, Arlecchino, and likely Rosaline. She also seemed to grieve the most as she sang Lullaby for Signora during her funeral. Columbina also said to have helped Dottore with light ramp related projects, but she lost interest very quickly after that. Funnily enough, unlike the other Harbingers that are tasked to retrieve the Gnosis, Columbina was never tasked to do any of that, so she basically does nothing in Snezhnaya. There are still few reasons why the Fatui wanted Columbina back, like they desperately wanted her back, but the Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau could likely be one of the main reasons why. Not only that, Columbina is the Tsaritsa's important chess piece, so it's not surprising if they wanted her back, and it's likely related to using the power of the Moon Goddess in order to rebel against the Heavenly Principles. There's a small and likely related clue on why they wanted to retrieve Columbina so badly, and that is the Nothing Passage's world quest. This place's lore is f***ed up, where this place was tasked by the Tsaritsa by sending the 6th company of the Fatui and 2 Fatui professors to experiment on the Ancient Moon's remnants. Basically, one of the professors, Proberhensky, states that the Ancient Moon's remnants have their own will and tries to protect itself whenever it is exposed to abyssal energy. It was then trained by this professor to consume and kill living beings to replenish its power, but still somehow show behaviors that benefit its surroundings more than itself. However, the experiment ended up blowing everyone up, including the entirety of the 6th company. What we saw when the traveler was sucked up into this weird abyssal-looking place could likely be the machines that were used by the Fatui, but some of the structures also include ancient unified civilization's ruins. Strangely enough, this place looks remarkably similar to what you see in the Book of Esoteric Revelations, which could imply this place is somewhere in the abyss or even outside of the false sky. Either way, I do believe everything that happened in the Nothing Passage is a strong hint on the Tsaritsa's whole plan or even what they want to do with Columbina, and I do hope we get more explanation on what really happened in this place. I am super disappointed because we could have had more information about this place in Netoka's World Quest, but alas, it's just a little Easter egg. Finally, let's put a conclusion on our talk just now. Do I think the Fatui will succeed in rebelling against the Heavenly Principles? I don't think so, because the Heavenly Principles won not only once, not twice, but 3 times against those who are trying to fight him. Even Nibelung lost to him, and even Sarkelainen, the 3rd descender, lost his life and his body was carved into the 7 Gnosis. The main cause of the cataclysm was Kynrians trying to rebel against the Heavenly Principles by using the power of the Abyss, yet it led to their own demise. Right now, the Heavenly Principles is asleep, trying to recover his power, and this is the perfect moment for the Abyss Order and the Fatui to fight back against them. But even then, I personally don't think it's that easy to rebel against him given the sheer power that the Heavenly Principles had, which is interesting to think about because they're one of, if not the strongest entity in this game. I personally don't think they'll succeed, but at the very least, they are at least able to dent or create a huge damage to the Heavenly Principles in some way. But let's assume that the Fatui succeeded in their rebellion. Then what happens after that? What will happen to humanity? Because again, the Heavenly Principles is the one that created the laws of Teyvat, and if they're gone, wouldn't that make the world's laws to be destroyed unless the Tsaritsa wants the 3rd descender to be the new ruler of Teyvat? The Fatui's plan is still very murky, and I do think we'll get our answers throughout this patch. Some of you in my comment section often talks about the Heavenly Principles, so I might make a dedicated video about him in the future because the argument about him being evil and not is very interesting. While I personally take the evil side, I also think that the Heavenly Principles is quite justified on what they did, at least for humanity. He is right, but also wrong at the same time, if that makes sense, you know? Like, here's the thing, there has to be a reason why everyone wants to rebel against the Heavenly Principles. And if that's not the case, then this game wouldn't have been the way it is right now. In any case, what are your thoughts about the Fatui? Let me know in the comments. Jana!